some days ago, we were discussing about a forum post where someone speculated that digging doesn't change based on the time in your house. I think I disagree, unless that little bit of digging was just softer than the digging we've done before. The number of hits I guess it takes for the time or for the little bit of ground to withdraw. I honestly feel like it's much faster now. As you can see, we didn't have any more room to plant any more mushrooms, so we're just gonna eat them. But today will be a reading day, just to fill some time. We spent a couple of days outside of our home. I think our shade deserves a little bit of a break. Ooh, let's also give them a fire. We have plenty of regular coal now. Cave, sweet cave. At the end of the last stream, we finished the Spoke Zarathustra, that name, the first volume. We could start the second one, or we can go to something else. I was thinking that, given how much time that we've gone through and how fast time is going now, unless we spend a lot of time reading, or I start reading faster, I don't think we're going to get through all 4 volumes of Zarathustra. Well, I am enjoying it. I am curious to see where the story will perhaps go. And we've only elapsed maybe 100 days. Volume 1, so maybe Volume 2 will take us just another 100 days. Let's aim for that, I think. Yeah, let's go for that. So I'll try to spend less time reflecting. Well, let's see how dense the writing is, shall we? All right. The second part. And only when ye have all denied me will I return unto you. Verily, with other eyes, my brethren, shall I then seek my lost ones. With another love, shall I then love you. Zarathustra, the first, the bestowing virtue. That read weirdly. The Child with the Mirror, chapter 23. After this, Zarathustra returned again into the mountains to the solitude of his cave, and withdrew himself from men, waiting like a sower who hath scattered his seed. His soul, however, became impatient and full of longing for those whom he loved, because he had still much to give them. For this is the hardest of all, to close the open hand out of love, to keep modest as a giver. Thus passed with the lonesome one months and years. His wisdom meanwhile increased, and caused him pain by its abundance. One morning, however, he awoke ere the rosy dawn, and having meditated long on his couch, at last spake thus to his heart. Why did I startle in my dream, so that I awoke? Did not a child come to me, carrying a mirror? O Zarathustra, said the child unto me, look at thyself in the mirror. But when I looked into the mirror, I shrieked, and my heart throbbed. For not myself did I see therein, but a devil's grimace and derision. Verily, all too well do I understand the dream's portent, and monition. Don't know the word. My doctrine is in danger. Tares want to be called wheat. Mine enemies have grown powerful and have disfigured the likeness of my doctrine, so that my dearest ones have to blush for the gifts that I gave them. Lost are my friends. The hour hath come for me to seek my lost ones. With these words, Zarathustra started up, not, however, like a person in anguish seeking relief, but rather like a seer and a singer whom the Spirit inspireth. With amazement did his eagle and serpent gaze upon him, for a coming bliss overspread his countenance, like the rosy dawn. What hath happened unto me, mine animals? Said Zarathustra. Am I not transformed? Hath not bliss come unto me like a whirlwind? Foolish is my happiness, and foolish things will it speak. It is still too young, so have patience with it. Wounded am I by my happiness. All sufferers shall be physicians unto me. To my friends can I again go down, and also to mine enemies. Zarathustra can again speak and bestow, and show his best love to his loved ones. My impatient love overfloweth in streams, down toward sunrise and sunset. Out of silent mountains and storms of affliction rusheth my soul into the valleys. Too long have I longed and looked into the distance. Too long hath solitude possessed me. Thus have I unlearned to keep silence. Utterance have I become altogether, and the brawling of a brook from high rocks downward into the valleys will I hurl my speech, and let the stream of my love sweep into the unfrequented channels. How should a stream not finally find its way unto the sea? Forsooth, there is a lake in me, sequestered and self-sufficing, but the stream of my love beareth this along with it, down to the sea. New paths do I tread, a new speech cometh unto me. Tired have I become, like all creatures, of the old tongues. No longer will my spirit walk on worn-out souls. Too slowly runneth all speaking for me. Into the chariot, O storm, do I leap, and even thee will I whip with my spite. Like a cry and a huzzah will I traverse wide seas, till I find the happy isles where my friends sojourn, and mine enemies amongst them. How I now love every one unto whom I may but speak. Even mine enemies pertain to my bliss. And when I want to mount my wildest horse, then doth my spear always help me up best. It is my foot's ever-ready servant. That skipped a page. The spear, which I hurl at mine enemies, how grateful I am to mine enemies that I may at last hurl it. Too great hath been my tension of my cloud. Twixt laughters of lightning will I cast hail showers unto the depths. Violently will my breast then heave, violently will it blow its storm over the mountains. Thus cometh its assuagement. Verily, like a storm cometh my happiness, but my freedom. But mine enemies shall think that the evil one roareth over their heads. Yea, ye also, my friends, will be alarmed by my wild wisdom. Perhaps ye will flee therefrom, along with mine enemies. Ah, I knew how to lure you back with shepherds' flutes. Ah, that my lioness wisdom would learn to roar softly. And much have we already learned with one another. My wild wisdom became pregnant on the lonesome mountains, on the rough stones, did she bear the youngest of her young. Now runneth she foolishly in the arid wilderness, and seeketh the soft sward, mine old wild wisdom. On the soft sward of your hearts, my friends, on your love, would she fain crouch her dearest one. Thus spake Zarathustra. The guy, he's been away a long time, and he's happy to now have a sequel. It's following a pattern where he returned home, and the beginning of this volume began just as the first, where he was leaving home, wanting to share his wisdom. But now he feels, oh, my wisdom is even greater. I have even more to share. And it'll be like a torrential flood, and off we go. I'm going to have a quick drink. It's like the excitement you get when there's a sequel, that's why I use the word, to a book series that you've been reading or a game. And this is launch day. Here we go. Chapter 24. In the Happy Isles. The figs fall from the trees. They are good and sweet, and in falling, the red skins of them break. The north wind am I to ripe figs. Thus, like figs, do all doctrines fall for you, my friends. Imbibe now their juice and their sweet substance. It is autumn all around, and clear sky and afternoon. Lo, what fullness is around us, and out of the mist of superabundance it is delightful to look out upon distant seas. Once did people say... I drink too fast. Once did people say God when they looked out upon the distant sea. Now, however, have I taught you to say Superman. God is a conjecture, but I do not wish your conjecturing to reach beyond your creating will. Could ye create a God? Then I pray you, be silent about all gods, but ye could well create the Superman. Not perhaps ye yourselves, my brethren, but unto fathers and forefathers of the Superman could ye transform yourselves. And let that be your best creating. God is a conjecture, and I should like your conjecturing restricted to the conceivable. Could ye conceive a God? But let this mean will to truth unto you, that everything be transformed into the humanly conceivable, the humanly visible, the humanly sensible. Your own discernment shall ye follow out to the end. And what ye have called the world, what ye have called the world shall but be created by you. Your reason, your likeness, your will, your love shall it itself become, and verily, for your bliss, ye discerning ones. And how would ye endure life without that hope, ye discerning ones? Neither in the inconceivable could ye have been born, nor in the irrational. But that I may reveal my heart entirely unto you, my friends, if there were gods, how could I endure it to be no God? Therefore, there are no gods. T12. Hello, friend. It's been a while since I've seen you around. Yea, I have drawn the conclusion. Now, however, doth it draw me? God is a conjecture, but who could drink all the bitterness of this conjecture without dying? Shall his faith be taken from the creating one, and from the eagle his flights unto eagle heights? It has. God is a thought. It maketh all the straight crooked, and all that standeth real. What? Time would be gone, and all the perishable would be but a lie. To think this is giddiness and vertigo to human limbs, and even vomiting to the stomach, verily the reeling sickness do I call it, to conjecture such a thing. Evil do I call it, and misanthropic. All that teaching about the one, and the plenum, and the unmoved, and the sufficient, and the imperishable, all the imperishable, but, well, that's but a simile, and the poets lie too much. But of time and of becoming shall the best simile speak. A praise shall they be, and a justification of all perishableness. Creating, that is the great salvation from suffering, and life's alleviation. But for the Creator to appear, suffering itself is needed, and much transformation. Yea, much bitter dying must there be in your life, ye creators. Thus are ye advocates and justifiers of all perishableness. For the Creator himself to be the newborn child, he must also be willing to be the child-bearer, and endure the pangs of the child-bearer. Verily, though 100 souls went I my way, and through 100 cradles and birth throes, many a farewell have I taken. I know the heart-breaking last hours, but so willeth it my creating will, my fate, or to tell you it more candidly, just such a fate willeth my will. all feeling suffereth in me, and is in prison, but my willing ever cometh to me as mine emancipator and comforter. Willing emancipateth, that is the true doctrine of will and emancipation. So teacheth you Zarathustra, no longer willing, and no longer valuing, and no longer creating. Ah, that a great debility may ever be far from me. And also, in discerning, do I feel only my will's procreating and evolving delight. And if there be innocence in my knowledge, it is because there is will to procreation in it. Away from God and gods did this will allure me. What would there be to create if there were gods? But to man doth it ever impel me in you, my fervent creative will. Thus impelleth it the hammer to the stone. Ah, ye men, within the stone slumbereth an image for me, the image of my visions. Ah, that it should slumber in the hardest, ugliest stone. Now rageth my hammer ruthlessly against its prison. From the stone fly the fragments. What's that to me? I will complete it, for a shadow came unto me. The stillest and lightest of all things once came unto me. The beauty of the Superman came unto me as a shadow. My brethren, of what account now are the gods to me? Thus spake Zarathustra. So, as you can see, T12 and anyone else joining who's in the middle of perhaps this series, this is the longing. You can see at the timer from the top, this game began at 400 days. It takes 400 quote-unquote real days to complete the game. As you can see, time is moving faster than 1 second per second. We're going at like 12 or 13 seconds per second. That's because we're in our home. Take a look here. Our home has been decorated from places that we have seen, things that we have only seen in our own mind and our imaginings. We've created artwork. The crystals we've ventured out and found. The carpets, this horse head we have ventured out and found. And all of these things, it makes our home comfortable. And spending time at home, the idea is that you're enjoying yourself at home. And when you're enjoying yourself, time moves faster. Even reading a book, such as this book that we're reading, whenever we turn a page of a book, another minute passes. And that's just to show that time flies when you're having fun. So part of the idea of the game is to get time moving fast. But why are we counting 400 days? Just to share briefly. Yeah, indeed, how the time flies. I should be reading more. We're going to step outside of our home. And just revisit what it is we're all about. That huge unit is the king. Awaken the king. So the king gave us a task. He created us, and he says he must rest. And at the end of 400 days to awaken him, in which time he will end all fear and longing. So that's how we begin, and he immediately goes to sleep. If we sit here a moment, you'll probably hear him snore. If we click to awaken the king, I wonder what the king is dreaming about. His awakening is not too far off. We can't awaken him, not early. So what do we do in that time, in these 400 days? The idea of this game came to the developer after visiting some very iconic caves. And there's some poetry, some little bit of literature written about those caves, that deep, deep under the earth is a slumbering king. And that king will one day awaken, but he also has with him a small dwarf. It's that game that just goes on forever. Yeah, pretty much. There is an ending, though. There is an absolute ending that you can have. Just yesterday, if you were to go back and watch one of the VODs, we shared one of the endings, perhaps the most tragic ending of all, where you have the option to kill yourself. Well, you leap into the abyss, but it's implied that it's a suicide. So we did show that off. I've played this game quite a bit. This is, I believe, my 7th time playing the game now. You might think, wait, 400 days? You played this game 7 times? How? To be fair, some of them were short. Like, to reach the ending for Suicide, it didn't take very long. There are actually speedruns of this game that take only about 2 hours to reach that ending. So it's possible to do things skipping through. I think in terms of actually playing through the full game, this will be only my 3rd time. I started playing this game a couple years ago, and it's been amazing to me, just the experience of it. And so this Let's Play of what we're doing is kind of a lore Let's Play, sharing some of the bits of lore that I've learned along the way, things that I've read from forums, from the developer themselves, things that I've come to understand myself, such as like the images on our wall. They're very symbolic, and there's a lot of meaning behind them. Nothing I can really share in a really short amount of time. You would probably have to go back and watch the VODs. But if you want to do that, I actually am uploading the VODs onto YouTube. So there is all of them. I've only been streaming about 1 hour a day. So it's really quick, really short. Just something daily to come back to. The game was inspired by idle games. The developer really enjoyed them. So there's a lot of idle game mechanics built into this game. And certain things to speed up that time, such as our home and improving our home. But yeah, let's actually share our thoughts. Our thoughts are a list of things that we could potentially do within the game, and it's something you have access to right at the very beginning. And so with this, you can just read some things that you should perhaps remember, and some things that can inspire you to explore places in the game. King warned me I should never leave the caves. Wonder what he meant by that. We still don't know. Wish I could dream of another place. It's crossed out because we have dreamed of another place. And there are more. Where is the darkness? That's the one we've just recently crossed out. Because we have just explored it. But we did not overcome it. And so that one is still meant to be seen. And that's something we'll probably do tomorrow. For the most part, because the game is not intended to fill 400 days worth of content, you kind of have to figure out what are you going to do in your time. The game, when you turn it off, it keeps counting for you. So you can turn it off and pick it up a year and a half later. And you will have completed the longing. Or you could adventure, tell your shade to go somewhere that you want him to go, turn the game off, come back to it later, and there he is waiting for you to tell him, what do we do here? So the essence, though, is you're going to run out of content. And that's when the feeling of the longing becomes real. And how do you just pass that time? The game is very honest about what longing means, what it means to feel loneliness, what it takes to perhaps overcome loneliness. The one ending we saw yesterday was one way of overcoming it, killing yourself. It's an honest option, and this game is not meek about talking about these things. There are other endings, and they're very different, and we're going to explore those as we continue. But because there is this limitation on how much content there actually is, every other day we hang out in our home, let time pass for that day of the stream, and we're just reading. I've been reading Thus Spoke Zarathustra because it has to do with philosophy, and it's somewhat interesting to me. I've heard about it. We could have read Moby Dick. The Shade has. The Shade has this option to idly read a book, and you can just turn the game off and come back, and he'll have read through that entire book. it's a publicly or freely available book, and you can find them online and read them, but it's nice that they're in the game for us to go through. But yeah, this is what we've been reading. We just finished the first book yesterday and just started the second one. But right, our thoughts. I wanted to see if there's anything else that we've changed recently. That looks the same. We found a secret library. A dream would be to find a book that never ends. Time goes by faster if you keep your mind occupied. Oh, my home is not comfortable enough for this long wait. That one has been recently crossed out in the past day or two. It could have been because we're planting mushrooms now in our home, but now it's crossed out. I can still enlarge our home, which is something we've been doing at the beginning of every stream. Well, the days that we're at home, that is. We still need some more wood to build a bed. We have running water. We are now growing mushrooms. This has all been crossed out before. So yeah, we've made a good bit of progress the last time we've been out and about. And I think adventuring tomorrow, we will probably confront again the darkness that we had found and see what we can do to overcome it. Urshade has had some internal dialogues, and he's overcome his fear of the king, of wanting to explore the caves further. He's overcome some of his fear about darkness itself, and we've discovered what that darkness actually is. And we faced it, and we lost against our own angst, and it was just a dream. We only dreamed of actually going there. So we have come to a conclusion, though, that by becoming darkness, we can overcome it, which is perhaps some way we can face that darkness, which is something I think we'll explore tomorrow. I don't think there's anything else that we wanted to see. Right. But that's the game so far. That's where we've gone, and what we're going to be doing for the next 300 days. Well, if we were to stay at home at this pace of time, it'd only be 30 days. But we've been at this for almost 3 weeks now. 30 days, another 3-ish plus weeks. Plus, we're probably going to be doing more things to speed up that time. So, another 2 weeks, perhaps. Chapter 25. The Pitiful. My friends, there hath arisen a satire on your friend. Behold, Zarathustra, walketh he not among us as if amongst animals? But it is better said in this wise, the discerning one walketh among men as amongst animals. Man himself is the discerning one, the animal with red cheeks. How hath that happened unto him? Is it not because he hath had to be ashamed too oft? O my friends, thus speaketh the discerning one. Shame, shame. Shame, that is the history of man. And on that account doth the noble one enjoin upon himself not to abash. Bashfulness doth he enjoin on himself in presence of all sufferers. Verily, I like them not. The merciful ones, whose bliss is in their pity, too destitute are they of bashfulness. If I must be pitiful, I dislike to be called so. And if I be so, it is preferably at a distance. Preferably also do I shroud my head and flee before being recognized. And thus do I bid you do, my friends. May my destiny ever lead unafflicted ones like you across my path, and those with whom I may have hope in repast, and honey in common. Verily, I have done this and that for the afflicted, but something better did I always seem to do when I had learned to enjoy myself better. Since humanity came into being, man hath enjoyed himself too little. That alone, my brethren, is our original sin. And when we learn better to enjoy ourselves, then do we unlearn best to give pain unto others, and to contrive pain. Therefore do I wash the hand that hath helped the sufferer. Therefore do I wipe also my soul. For in seeing the sufferer suffering thereof, I was ashamed on account of his shame, and in helping him sorely did I wound his pride. Great obligations do I make grateful, but revengeful. And when a small kindness is not forgotten, it becometh a gnawing worm. Be shy in accepting, distinguish by accepting. Thus do I advise those who have not to bestow. I, however, am a bestower. Willingly do I bestow as friends to friends. Strangers, however, and the poor, may pluck for themselves the fruit from my tree. Thus doth it cause less shame. Beggars, however, one should entirely do away with. Verily, it annoyeth one to give unto them, and it annoyeth one not to give unto them. And likewise sinners, and bad consciences. Believe me, my friends, the sting of conscience teacheth one to sting. The worst things, however, are the petty thoughts. Verily, better to have done evilly than to have thought pettily. To be sure, ye say, the delight in petty evils spareth one many a great evil deed. But here one should not wish to be sparing. Like a boil is the evil deed, it itcheth and irritateth and breaketh forth. It speaketh honorably. Behold, I am disease, saith the evil deed. That is its honorableness. But like infection is the petty thought. It creepeth and hideth and wanteth to be nowhere, until the whole body is decayed and withered by the petty infection. To him, however, who is possessed of a devil, I would whisper this word into the ear. Better for thee to rear up thy devil. Even for thee there is still a path to greatness. My brethren, one knoweth a little too much about everyone, and many a one becometh transparent to us, but still we can by no means penetrate him. It is difficult to live among men, because silence is so difficult. Not to him who is offensive to us are we most unfair, but to him who doeth not concert us at all. If, however, thou hast a suffering friend, then be a resting place for his suffering, like a hard bed, however, a camp bed. Thus wilt thou serve him best. And if a friend doeth thee wrong, then say, I forgive thee what thou hast done unto me, and thou hast done it unto thyself, that thou hast done it unto thyself. However, how could I forgive that? Thus speaketh all great love. It surpasseth even forgiveness and pity. One should hold fast one's heart, for when one letteth it go, how quickly doth it one's head run away. Where in the world have there been greater follies than with the pitiful? And what in the world hath caused more suffering than the follies of the pitiful? Woe unto all loving ones who have not an elevation which is above their pity. Thus spake the devil unto me, once on a time, even God hath his hell. It is in his love for man. And lately did I hear him say these words, God is dead. Of his pity for man hath God died. So be ye warned against pity. From thence there yet cometh unto man a heavy cloud. Verily, I understand weather signs, but attend also to this word. All great love is above all its pity, for it seeketh to create what is loved. Myself I do offer unto my love, and my neighbor as myself. Such is the language of all creators. All creators, however, are hard. Thus spake Zarathustra. I'm going to take a quick break. Be right back. Right. So, considering all this, I think the one part that I understood well was this part about the beggar, where it's hard to be a beggar and it's hard for the person who sees the beggar. It's just like a sort of uncomfort where you see them and it's like, well, that's the way I'm walking. And I don't want to say no. I kind of want to pretend he's not there and maybe just walk past them. It's hard to give them something. It's hard not to give them something. It's a situation I've seen, and I know a lot of people are familiar with that. But Zarathustra says he just has a tree that's just available, and those beggars can just come take from it if they need. But he's not talking about begging. He's talking about how you share things with people, and how, like, when you live in a community with people, people will start to become transparent in a way through like word of mouth and gossip. You start to know who people are to some degree. I wish he wasn't speaking in metaphor when he was saying he just has a tree for those beggars to take knowledge from, because he doesn't explain how he does that. But he also went on to some length about why gods don't exist, and or why God is dead. And that to be as a creator, uh, to not create a god, but for Zarathustra, the ideal is to create the Superman. And that's something that is tangible. It's something that is worthwhile and can be done. The idea of a Superman is an evolution of mankind to deal away with the pettiness and all the things that are the entrappings of mankind, and to strive to become something beyond that. And I guess it comes from intellect, and that perhaps we could not become Superman ourselves, but that the next generation could. I find some kind of flaw and folly in that. It's kind of self-perpetuating, where each generation, if this is their only source of knowledge, to just gain this knowledge and strive for it, so that way their children can reach for it, then what do the children do? Pick up and read the same book, read it and say, oh, it's not me, perhaps my children will. So how does it begin to actualize? Well, I guess there's still the rest of this volume and 2 more beyond. Perhaps it does expand further. Well, chapter 26, the priests. And one day Zarathustra made a sign to his disciples, and spake these words unto them. You are priests, but although they are mine enemies, pass them quietly, and with sleeping swords. Even among them there are heroes. Many of them have suffered too much. So they want to make others suffer. The bad enemies are they. Nothing is more revengeful than their meekness, and readily doth he soil himself who toucheth them. But my blood is related to theirs, and I want withal to see my blood honored in theirs. And when they had passed, a pain attacked Zarathustra. But not long had he struggled with the pain, and he began to speak thus. It moveth my heart for those priests. They also go against my taste. But that is the smallest matter unto me, since I am among men. But I suffer and have suffered with them. Prisoners are they unto me, and stigmatized ones. He, whom they call Savior, put them in fetters of false values and fatuous words. Oh, that some would save them from their Savior. On an isle they once thought they had landed, when the sea tossed them about. But behold, it was a slumbering monster. False values and fatuous words, these are the worst monsters for mortals. Long slumbereth, and waiteth the fate that is in them. But at last it cometh and awaketh, and devoureth and engulfeth whatever hath built tabernacles upon it. Just look at those tabernacles which those priests have built themselves. Churches they call their sweet-smelling caves. That falsified light, that mustified air, where the soul may not fly aloft to its height. But so enjoineth their belief. On your knees, up the stair, ye sinners. Verily, rather would I see a shameless one than the distorted eyes of their shame and devotion. Who created for themselves such caves and penitent stairs? Was it not those who sought to conceal themselves and were ashamed under the clear sky? And only when the clear sky looketh again through ruined roofs and down upon grass and red poppies on ruined walls, will I again turn my heart to the seats of this God. They called God that which opposed and afflicted them, and verily, there was much hero spirit in their worship, and they knew not how to love their God, otherwise than by nailing men to the cross. As corpses they thought to live, in black draped they their corpses, even in their talk do I still feel the evil flavor of charnel houses. And he who liveth nigh unto them liveth nigh unto black pools, wherein the toad singeth his song with sweet gravity. Better songs would they have to sing, for me to believe in their Saviour. More like saved ones would his disciples have to appear unto me. Naked would I like to see them, for beauty alone should preach penitence. But whom would that disgusted affliction convince? Verily their Saviours themselves came not from freedom, and freedom's seventh heaven. Verily they themselves never trod the carpets of knowledge. Of defects did the spirit of those Saviours consist, but unto every defect had they put their illusion, their stopgap, which they called God. In their pity was their spirit drowned, and when they swelled and overswelled with pity, there always floated to the surface a great folly. Eagerly, and with the shouts drove they their flock over their footbridge, as if there were there but one footbridge to the future. Verily, those shepherds also were still of the flock. Small spirits and spacious souls had those shepherds, but, my brethren, What small domains have even the most spacious souls hitherto been? Characters of blood did they write on the way they went, and their folly taught the truth. Taught that truth is proved by blood. But blood is the very worst witness to truth. Blood tainteth the purest teaching, and turneth it into delusion and hatred of heart. And when a person goeth through fire for his teaching, what doth that prove? It is more verily, when out of one's own burning cometh one's own teaching. Sultry heart and cold head, where these meet, there arises the blusterer, the Saviour. Greater ones verily have there been, and higher born ones, than those whom the people call saviours, these rapturous blusterers. And by still greater ones than any of the saviours must ye be saved, my brethren, if ye would find the way to freedom. Never yet hath there been a Superman. Naked have I seen both of them, the greatest man and the smallest man. All too similar are they still to each other. Verily, even the greatest found I all too human. Thus spake Zarathustra. When he talks about God, he's obviously referencing the Christianic, or what's the other term? This sort of Catholic, Christianic deity of God with their churches and such. And the way they speak of sinfulness and stuff like that. And there's something he was saying here, that it's better to be true to yourself. That's what's said in the previous chapter. I've read a book. It's written by Anton LaVey. He was known as the person who wrote the anti-Bible, or the creating something. They call it like the Bible for devil worshippers, which is somewhat silly because they don't actually worship a devil. But they take the fact that the idea of a devil was created by these believers, that there are no other texts that reference this devil more so than these Christianic / Catholic books and scriptures. So what he calls the devil are those things that are like sinful. But he's also saying, Zarathustra and Anton LaVey, that it's better to be true to yourself. So let's instead worship being true to ourselves, the things that we deny ourselves. And it sounds somewhat like Zarathustra saying the same thing, to be truly like satisfying ourselves, or celebrating that, finding that real happiness within us. Sounds very similar. Anton LaVey, when he started the foreword of his book, I found really interesting, because in the beginning he was working as a pianist, piano player, keyboard player, however you want to interpret it, and he played music at the local circuses, and he would play the music there many days of the week, but on the weekends he would play the organ at the church. And you know, as one does, you start to get to know the people when you attend their congregations day in, day again. So he noticed that the people he saw at the circus, who were like lusting over the women and looking them and being the sinful person that they are, he would see these same people congregate at the churches saying, "Oh, woe is me, I am a sinner." And he thought, what a weird paradox. Why are people going about the thing they truly love and truly desire, but then bashing themselves over the head for what it is they enjoyed on a specific day of the week? It seemed very absurd to him and very unusual. And so he reached this very similar conclusion, that people should then instead just celebrate what is in their own nature. Zarathustra is quite different, where the book one we've talked about, well, not we, but Zarathustra talks about, okay, go ahead and travel that way, but if we're trying to create the ideal, a Superman, then marriage should have an ideal state to create a Superman. If you're just somebody who's just picking up the first girl they come across, then you're not establishing a home to create a Superman. You're going to have to drink of your own regrets. And he goes through a lot there in that book. So in some ways, they are very similar, but how they're going about it is quite different. But I see the similarity there, and I think it's quite interesting how they both poke against these religious groups and the God that these religious groups talk about. I think we can do one more. 27. The virtuous. With thunder and heavily fireworks must one speak to indolent and somnolent senses. But beauty's voice speaketh gently. It appealeth only to the most awakened souls. Gently vibrated and laughed unto me today, my buckler. It was beauty's holy laughing and thrilling. At you, ye virtuous ones, laughed my beauty today, and thus came its voice unto me. They want to be paid besides. Ye want to be paid besides, ye virtuous ones. Ye want reward for virtue, and heaven for earth, and eternity for your today. And now ye upbraid me for teaching that there is no reward giver, nor paymaster, and verily I do not even teach that virtue is its own reward. Ah, this is my sorrow. Unto the basis of things have reward and punishment been insinuated. And now, even unto the basis of your souls, ye virtuous ones, but like the snout of the bear, shall my word grub up the basis of your souls. A plowshare will I be called by you. All the secrets of your heart shall be brought to light, and when ye lie in the sun, grubbed up and broken, then will also your falsehood be separated from your truth. For this is your truth. Ye are too pure for the filth of the words, vengeance, punishment, recompense, retribution. Ye love your virtue, as a mother loveth her child. But when did one hear of a mother wanting to be paid for her love? It is your dearest self, your virtue. The ring's thirst is in you. To reach itself again struggleth every ring, and turneth itself. And, like the star that goeth out, so is every work of your virtue. Ever is its light on its way and traveling, and when will it cease to be on its way? Thus is the light of your virtue still on its way, even when its work is done. Be it forgotten and dead, still its ray of light liveth and travelleth. That of your virtue is yourself, and not an outward thing, a skin or a cloak. That is the truth from the basis of your souls, ye virtuous ones. But sure enough, there are those to whom virtue meaneth writhing under the lash, and ye have hearkened too much unto their crying. And others are there who call virtue the slothfulness of their vices, and when once their hatred and jealousy relax the limbs, their justice becometh lively and rubbereth its sleepy eyes. And others are there who are drawn downwards, their devils draw them, but the more they sink, the more ardently gloweth their eye, and the longing for their God. Their crying also hath reached your ears, ye virtuous ones. What I am not, that is God to me, and virtue. And others are there, who go along heavily and creakingly, like carts taking stones downhill. They talk much of dignity and virtue. They dare drag they call virtue. And others are there who are like 8-day clocks when wound up. They tick and want people to call ticking virtue. Verily, in those have I mine amusement. Whenever I find such clocks, I shall wind them up with my mockery, and they shall even whir thereby. And others are proud of their modicum of righteousness, and for the sake of it do violence to all things, so that the world is drowned in their unrighteousness. How ineptly cometh the word virtue out of their mouth, and when they say, I am just, it always soundeth like, I am just revenged. With their virtues they want to scratch out the eyes of their enemies, and they elevate themselves only, that they may lower others. And again, there are those who sit in their swamp, and speak thus from among the bulrushes. Virtue, that is to sit quietly in the swamp. We bite no one, and go out of the way of him who would bite, and in all matters we have the opinion that is given us. And again, there are those who love attitudes and think that virtue is a sort of attitude. Their knees continually adore, and their hands are eulogies of virtue, but their heart knoweth not thereof. And again, there are those who regard it as virtue to say, virtue is necessary. But after all they believe only that policemen are necessary. And many a one who cannot see men's loftiness calleth it virtue, to see their baseness far too well. Thus calleth he his evil eye virtue. And some want to be edified and raised up, call it virtue, and others want to be cast down and likewise call it virtue, and thus do almost all think that they participate in virtue. And at least everyone claimeth to be an authority on good and evil. But Zarathustra came not to say unto all those liars and fools, what do ye know of virtue? What could ye know of virtue? But that ye, my friends, might become weary of the old words which ye have learned from the fools and liars. That ye might become weary of the words reward, retribution, punishment, righteous vengeance, that ye might become weary of saying that an action is good because it is unselfish. My friends, that your very self be in your action as the mother is in her child. Let that be your formula of virtue. Verily, I have taken from you 100 formula, and your virtue's favorite playthings. And now ye upbraid me, as children upbraid. They played by the sea. Then came there a wave, and swept their playthings unto the deep, and now do they cry. But the same wave shall bring them new playthings, and spread before them new speckled shells. Thus will they be comforted, and like them shall ye also, my friends, have your comforting, and new speckled shells. Thus spake Zarathustra. To me, that one's quite clear, where some people, they'll create this idea of a society, call it a high society, and now they can be above the others, the common folk, the peasants, and they can turn their noses down on them because that's what they wanted all along. They wanted that status, that virtue, but that's not real virtue. You know, he says he doesn't preach that virtue is its own reward. He says nothing of the kind. Those are wise words by someone else. But he's saying that you shouldn't consider it a reward at all. Just doing what you're meant to do, like a clock. When you wind it up and it's ticking, and the clock just strutting its stuff. Look at me. I'm ticking. I'm virtuous. No, you're a clock. You're just doing what's normal. That's not anything above the norm. And that thing that you're doing that's above the normal, that's where virtue is. And his analogy was a mother caring for their child and being patient with it and doing things that are just quite appalling sometimes when you think about it, you know, and waking up at odd hours and such to care for a child and constantly have to clean and care for, but you do it without question. And it's not like you're expecting a reward for doing any of those things. That's where virtue should lay. I'm not necessarily saying that the mother is virtuous for doing those things, but that it's done without seeking for things. It's not saying that it is its own reward. It's none of that. It's just doing what is required. But I'm sort of getting lost in my own thoughts, my own words. In any case, that's what I understood out of that one. I think it was quite clear. And I'm glad about that. We've got through 67 pages today. I feel like we can get through this whole book before the next 100 days of the longing. I'm feeling good about this. I think we will continue to keep reading these. This is, I can imagine for many people, a lot of weird and crazy thoughts to have, especially me comparing with Anton LaVey, things that are just like, what? You're saying worship devil? No, not at all. I was just comparing what Anton LaVey had written in celebrating what it means to be human. It's similar to what Zarathustra was saying. However, Anton LaVey, he doesn't speak of virtue. He just means to celebrate what you are as a human being. Zarathustra, he wants to say, okay, we're human, but could we not evolve into something more? A Superman. How would we strive to do that? We would have to first strive to better ourselves in some way. And this is where he begins to speak of virtues. He doesn't call things sin. He doesn't call people sinners. His goal isn't to tear people down. And in fact, he says some of those people who do that, who go up and preach just to tear people down, that they enjoy that. That those people who were up there, they enjoy calling people sinners. They enjoy something out of that process. They enjoy being that person who's greater than thou. And in that, those people, they're not creating a world where Superman can live in or thrive in. And that as people, we need to overcome those things and become greater in some way. And that greaterness would be the Superman. So very different than like the anti-Semitical, or it's opposite of what somebody might draw from me talking about Anton LaVey. Just in case, just wanted to put that out there. But yeah, so we still have a good number of books. We're going to set the shade to read another. That's a short one. There's a big one. Set the shade to idle read, and he'll continue to read while we are away. And with 795, let me see, that's something like 8.5 hours of time we'll gain from the shade just idly reading. Enjoy your book, little shade. Suturozu, such a good game. I agree. This is not my first time playing through the game. And you're joining right at the end of the stream. That's a lot of Poe. There is quite a bit of Poe. They could have just done a large volume of just Poe. Rip. Yeah. My finger is hovering over the end stream button. But if you have any questions, if you want to share anything about the game, feel free. We can hang out and chat a bit. think it's safe. Yeah, I can turn these pages without hurting anything else. Right. The Cask of Amontillado, the Raven. What else is here? Oops. I clicked the wrong thing. Thank you for the follow. I have been streaming daily, just for an hour. So you're welcome to pop in on a daily basis. Time Machine, Secret Garden, there are still more books. We have not discovered all the books yet in the game. I believe there are 42 books. 42. 50th follow. Yeah, we had a 50th follower, but you've just replaced them. Thank you so much. That's been a goal for a long time, to reach 50 followers. That's kind of a milestone that Twitch puts in there. If you want to become a partner, you have to reach 50 followers. And yo, that's amazing. I think one person left. Okay. That's awesome. But I've been enjoying this game for over a year. This is my third full playthrough of the game. I have 7 of the 8 profiles on my Switch. I'll have a save game on this game. Actually, all 8 of the profiles on my Switch. You're only limited to 8 profiles on the Switch. All 8 of them have a save game on this game. One of them was my best friend. She didn't have a Switch of her own, so she made a profile and played it on here. But here, yeah, the 8th profile is now being filled. I have saved all my save games. My first time playing through the game, I've left it there so I can return to it. There are only 5 endings to the game, so what are the other 3? One of them is the one we're playing now. One of them is a character I have left in a really neat place of the game that I don't want to spoil too much. Is near an ending, but is not entered the ending, and it remains there, and I enjoy that. The other game, there's a place called Eternity, where if you walk to the right, it just goes on forever. And every couple of minutes is something random that spawns. Usually a piece of paper, or there are a few bits of furniture and a few books that you can only find there in the Halls of Eternity. After all those unique ones are finished, you will only find paper. So I set the character to walk to the right. And as you know, when you turn off the game, everything continues to happen. So if I were to load up that profile, that character theoretically should still be walking through the Halls of Eternity. I started that game over 2 years ago. So there's been a character walking through the Halls of Eternity for over 2 years. I've not loaded up the profile yet. I'm curious to see what will happen, but I'm also excited, and it's something I'm going to only really do once. I did load it up after I had started it. After a few months, I had loaded it up, looked at it, and I did notice that the Halls of Eternity kind of had a little bit of lag going on. And I haven't touched it since. It's been over a year since I've touched it. So it might just completely break. I don't know, but I'm building up to it. I think it's probably something we'll look at the very end after I've done whatever it is we're going to do with this playthrough. I'm still very undecided how we're going to end the playthrough. But we could do that. We could just load up that profile and just walk through Eternity. If Eternity is forever, truly forever. But yeah, again, streaming every day. There are VODs here. And going back beyond 1 week, if you check on YouTube, there should be a link to YouTube in... You have to click... It should be visible now. But once the stream is off, there is a section where you can see links. If you go to my YouTube, you can see the past streams. But yeah, keeping it an hour. Thanks for coming in. Thanks for coming out, hanging out. Hope to see you again.